Hi again, it's Eliza, Annika's mom, and I'm going to be reading chapter 14 of Front Desk for you. What's wrong? Lupe asked me at recess the next day. All day I'd been walking around with this humongous cloud over my head. The sadness must have been leaking out of my eyes because Lupe kept looking at me. And of course, the more she looked at me, the more I wanted to tell her. But how? How could I tell her a drunk guy grabbed me, clenched by a fistful of my shirt, and screamed in my face that a man I was working for didn't think my life was worth $25 per square foot? How could I tell Lupe all that? Oh, come on, it can't be that bad, she said, which didn't make me feel better at all. It only made me mad because really she had no idea what she was talking about. As much as I like Lupe, she was just in a different world. Her and her perfect parents and her perfect dog. It just wasn't fair. I stood up. I'm sorry, I need to be alone right now, I told her, and I walked away. I wandered down the hallway and ended up in the empty auditorium. There was a piano in the front, so I went and sat down at its bench. Back in China, I used to play a little with my cousins because a friend of my aunt was a teacher and gave us free lessons on Sundays. I had learned Beethoven, Bach, and simple Mozart. Of course, I hadn't touched a piano since I came over here. Gently, I lifted the cover. To my surprise, it wasn't locked. With a trembling finger, I pressed down on the middle C. I closed my eyes, feeling the note. Oh, C, how I've missed you. I picked up my other hand and ran my fingers up and down the familiar black and white keys. Slowly, I began to play Fleur Elise. I thought I might have forgotten it. It had been 2 long years, but I still seemed to remember it. The notes carried me far, far away. I felt weightless, soaring across the ocean of memories. I thought of my cousin Shen, how the two of us used to get all dressed up for our piano recitals, me in a silk qipao and him in his embroidered qiaoxuan. We'd point at each other in our old-fashioned Chinese outfits and giggle, even though deep down inside, we were both very proud to be wearing them. Then, as the curtain rose, we'd mouth, "You can do it," to each other. A fury of excitement as I stepped onto the stage. Closing my eyes, I could almost see Xuan. My fingertips almost touched him. When I got to the dramatic section, fear poked in. This was the part I used to always mess up on. Why put a scary part in the middle of such a beautiful piece? I remember asking my piano teacher. Because life is scary sometimes, little one, he had said. I was only 5 at the time and didn't quite understand. Now when I played the dramatic session, my chin quivered. I felt a sob building within me as I thought about Mr. Yao and how he just took and took and took, how he refused to spend $25 a square foot to protect us, even though $25 was nothing to him. It was probably what he paid for dinner. I thought about my father, robbed of sleep, jolted awake by customers night after night, and my mother, the way her eyes twitched at the supermarket checkout counter every time the cashier scanned a new item and the total price jumped. I thought about Hank and his saltine burgers and Uncle Ming and the loan shark, and before I knew it, tears were streaming down my cheeks. As my feelings coursed through my fingers into the sad music, I suddenly heard a sound from the back. Someone was in the auditorium listening to me. I instantly stopped playing and jumped up from the piano. I hugged myself with my arms like I was naked. "Hello?" I called. The small figure had made its way over to me. When I saw who it was, my stomach lurched. "What are you doing here?" I asked Jason. Jason ignored my question and asked, "Where'd you learn to play like that?" I had a teacher in China, I said. What do you care? I learned to play like that, and you learned to play like that in China, he repeated. There was a flash of surprise in his eyes. I nodded. But my father said there's nothing in China except piles of dirt and trash, he said. Your father's a liar, I said angrily. A typhoon ripped through me, my hands balled into fists, prepping for battle. He said that you guys like to sit around and spit on the floor. That's absurd, I exclaimed. Is it true none of you had any money? He asked. That part was unfortunately true. My parents came to America with only $200 in their pocket. How'd you learn to play the piano if you had no money? Jason asked. For some reason, this infuriated me. Why can't I learn piano? I asked him. What, you think only rich people get to do stuff? Jason's face turned bright red. I just meant poor people can do stuff too, I shouted at him as I slammed the piano cover and walked away. I really enjoyed reading to you tonight. I hope you guys are doing well. Have a wonderful holiday.